Hi, and welcome to Project Geospatial. We're here at GeoInt 2021 here in St. Louis, Missouri, and I'm here with Whitespace with CEO and founder Jackie Barbieri and the spatial data analyst Sam Leung, who are you just won something just a few hours ago, right? Something important?
Yeah, you want to talk about it?
Sure. Yes. So we competed in USJF's Innovative Tradecraft competition. So we had a lot of competitors in the first round. We became finalists. So we just presented on the main stage this morning, and they announced about an hour ago that we won, barely, narrowly, but we did it. So yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about how were you competing, and what idea were you bringing to the table?
Sure. So the project that we presented on is one we've been working on for the past year and a half. And it's the COVID-19 prediction capability that our company's been working on. So we worked with some mobile device location data and with some researchers at Yale, and we figured out how to predict where new outbreaks of cases are going to occur using that mobile device location data.
So basically you use people's cell phone data to figure out where to predict major hotspots for COVID outbreaks. That is insane. I mean, it makes total sense, and it should be utilized a lot, much more though than even like transportation data or other things that don't necessarily predict actual movement and behavior. But it's so simple that it seems completely innovative. So can you tell me a little bit about Whitespace? And obviously you're looking at geospatial problems from a really unique perspective. So can you tell us more about Whitespace?
Sure. So I founded Whitespace in 2014, and our core competency is in a type of analytic tradecraft that came out of the GeoInt community. It's called activity-based intelligence. So I don't know if anybody out in the audience will know what that means, but some of you will. And we were primarily involved in R&D and training related to ABI, focused on the defense and intel communities. And the goal was to take our knowledge of how to manage geospatial big data, and particularly non-pixel big data, and apply it both for government and commercially. And so we spent the last almost 7 years now, experimenting, learning, interacting with new customers and clients. And this Data Pandemos project that Samantha presented on this morning was a huge breakthrough for us over the last year in terms of how we could apply ABI to near real-time data collected in the real world commercially in a way that was privacy aware, but also gave decision makers something actionable that they could actually, use to make policy decisions. So that's a little bit about where we came from and the direction we're going in. And our goal is really just to help develop new ways to measure human activity to inform human security problems and help overcome those types of challenges.
Just reading up a little bit on what you do, I really loved how you focus on the true movements of humans, where it's like move, interact, rest. So it's not just, there was a better terminology that you used for it, but it's not just a movement from place to place, but rather it's those linger moments that are so important. And myself, who works in professional sports, the linger moments are really where they interact with things, they interact with retail, with food, things like that. So tell me a little bit about how you designed that human scale model of like understanding that human behavior is more from moving place to place, but it's really those movements in between that are so useful for commercial, government, all kinds of different types of targets.
That's a really great question. So what we differentiate between on the site that you probably saw is mobility metrics versus contact, right? So we're measuring close interpersonal contact for our public health use case. Mobility is useful for other things, but it really is those moments where we're at rest that tells you a lot about potentially the context of what that activity is or why. That's when we do things that are meaningful, whether it's meet with other people, buy something, learn something. And so by measuring what we call dwell events and focusing on those, that's how we were not only able to understand and inform some new types of patterns that we hadn't been able to measure before, but also figure out the close interpersonal contact metric. So it was sort of a necessary ingredient in our process for the public health use case. But now we're finding all kinds of new applications for it, and it's pretty exciting.
Can either one of you tell me more about some of those applications? Oh yeah, Sam, please. yeah. Tell me more about, because part of this is we want to get people excited, like inspired about how you can solve real problems. I mean, I think that's really what drives people to work, is to feel like they're being purposeful. Can you tell some examples of ways that you can use this different lens of looking at mobility data to solve human problems?
Yeah, so I think when we were looking first at the mobility data, because we looked at a bunch of different metrics that they were coming up in the beginning of the pandemic, and the thing with the mobility metrics was that it wasn't measuring the key driver of disease transmission. So we were looking at contact, but mobility metrics just show how far you're traveling. So if you live in a really rural area, you live on a farm, you could drive 50 miles, not come into contact with a single person. If you live in a big city, you could go downstairs from your apartment to the grocery store, the corner store, and contact with 50 people. So we wanted to make sure that we were measuring something that actually showed where people were having that contact. And so that's how we ended up getting the contact metrics. And we've looked at a couple different use cases over the past year because we knew that hopefully at some point we would be getting things more back to normal. And with vaccines and stuff, we wouldn't necessarily be having the same amount of transmission, even if you were having the same amount of contact. So we started looking at other ways we could use it. And one of the more recent ways we've been looking at is aggregated crowd dynamics. So we had a couple different use cases. We looked at some big events over the past year. We looked at January 6th. We looked at the All-Star game for the MLB. We've looked at the Super Bowl in February, and we looked at how crowds move, what informs their movement, where places in these crowds that people are stopping longer, resting. For example, for some things that we're looking at for our use cases for the NFL was areas where maybe people are parked a lot, if they're taking shuttles to and from, or if they're not taking the shuttles, what are good places for tailgates, because that would help with consumers and like advertising and stuff like that. So that's where we are now. Yeah.
And I'm going to add on to that. So this is where we sort of bring the things together. So talking about crowd dynamics, one thing we can do is take sort of a crowd and provide summary statistics about that crowd. So most geospatial or location intelligence solutions focus on the place. We focus on the people, right, or the devices. So we can provide summary statistics like for this, we call them blobs internally, but for this little, cluster of devices, how far did they travel on average to come to the game? How many games on average have they attended over the course of the season? And if we had other data like whether it's some sort of transactional data for that facility, what's their average spend when they're at that facility? That sort of brings together what is traditionally a cost center for an organization, security, with helping not only to protect, but to also boost the bottom line, potentially, if the sales and marketing team also has access to that data. So I'm really excited about the potential for both security teams and marketing and sales teams within large organizations to work together to improve fan experience at large venues and just help everybody be a little safer and a little smarter.
Oh, that's awesome. I love the idea of Whitespace, like the movement in between, right? The in between objects. Yeah, it's clever. I like it. Whoever was in charge of the naming. Ooh, yes. So, yeah. So obviously we want to get more people like yourselves interested in geospatial, interested in technology, not only to promote the industry, but also to help solve our very human problems that we have, and certainly increasing with population demand, climate issues, more and more it is about like understanding how we work on a very detailed level in order to be able to help ourselves essentially. What are some ways that you know of to get, or some suggestions on how to get more people like yourselves interested in this industry, know about it, and really want to get involved and start solving problems?
I think it's really exposure and education. I think increasingly the way we all operate as a society day to day with phones and devices, everything we do is location enabled. And so I think for folks in school, graduating from school, thinking about what they want to do with their careers, it might seem almost too obvious or too intuitive. And it actually can be kind of overwhelming because geospatial or location information does underpin so much these days. And I think that's only going to continue to increase. So I think this type of work that you all are doing is awesome. Large organizations like USGIF and the way they interact with young professionals and universities. But I also know from chatting with Samantha and some other participants, even some of our fellow competitors in the tradecraft competition, that on university campuses, there's a lot more that could be done to sort of bridge the gap between the sort of the theory or the science of this type of work with the real world application. I know I never thought about a degree in GIS in school, and here I am, right? So the real world part to me is the cool part. What do you think, Sam? Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, from the education side, I guess, since I just recently graduated from my master's program, I would say that definitely there's kind of a gap between what you hear about for geo and like GIS stuff in school versus how it's used in business and government and companies in the real world. When I was in school, I think we were joking about the other night, but to me, GIS was maps. Like it was very just, yeah. Do I have Google Maps? Like, do I need to learn how to make a map? It wasn't the application of putting data onto a map and geospatially referencing things, which is what you do every day, and you don't realize, like Jackie said, it's so intuitive, you don't think about it. And so when I kind of came to Jackie looking for some mentorship and some leadership, I had told her I felt like I didn't have that, because to me this was all very like technical, and I felt I didn't have that background from my schooling. And then being able to intern and then work part-time and come on full-time, I saw that it wasn't just math and science. Like, it's stuff that you do every day and you know how to do it, and maybe you don't know how to articulate it in coding or like in algorithms that you use to do it, but you are doing it all the time every day. And so there's definitely a disconnect, I think, when they're presenting it in schools about how you can use it in the real world.
I want to jump on that. So I think data science is a really hot industry, or it's become a very during the pandemic, I can't even count the number of like data science boot camps and Python courses and things that have come up online, which is fantastic. But I want to see more of those data scientists step into the geospatial direction. I think that combination of skills is so powerful. There are so many problems that we can't touch right now just because the talent pool isn't really there. And within our company, we've had to kind of create it. And that takes time. It's totally worth it. But I wish there was a little bit more cross exposure for data science and data science related majors in geospatial.
Well, I certainly hope that stories like what you're doing and your company and the problems that you're trying to solve really help inspire a lot more people to get involved, and understanding about how they can apply data science to geospatial and to really help us have a better planet. So, well, thank you so much to Jackie and Sam. Good luck here at GeoInt, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your time.
Thank you.
Yeah.